Morning rose gently over the crowded streets of Manila, spreading a pale gold light across rooftops patched with rust and hope. In a small, narrow room at the edge of Quiapo, two siblings prepared for another day that looked painfully similar to the one before it. Yet deep inside, they carried a dream far bigger than the streets they walked on. Aiden, at 20, moved quietly, almost invisible in his own home. He had a softness in his nature, a gentleness that life had not managed to erase. Mira, just 17, was the opposite, a spark, brave and steady, holding her family together with silent strength that felt older than her age. Together, they were a balance. One heart beating softly, the other burning bright. Their father rested on a worn mattress near the window. His illness had weakened him, shaping his shoulders inward, but his eyes held stories of better days. Their mother had already left for her morning shift, the weight of survival pushing her through exhaustion. Everything felt heavy, yet the siblings carried it without complaint. Music was their only escape, the single place where poverty could not reach them. Outside, the city buzzed with life. Jeepneys rumbled past. Vendors called out. And beneath an old awning near the marketplace, the siblings set up the small speaker borrowed from a neighbor. This had been their stage for years. No bright lights. No cameras. Just passing strangers who sometimes stopped, sometimes ignored, sometimes smiled. When they sang, their voices blended like two colors merging into one. Aiden's quiet, aching tone wrapped itself around Mira's bright, fearless sound. People paused, sensing something rare. Something honest. Something born not from training, but from surviving. Yet even as they sang, worry clung to them. Bills piled up. Medicine was running out. Their mother grew thinner. Their father grew weaker. And every night, when the singing ended, silence reminded them of their reality. Then, one late evening, Mira opened an email that made her breath stop. An invitation. An audition. A chance so unreal it felt like a dream too fragile to touch. And for the first time in a long time, hope walked into their small room. Their decision to leave was not made in a single moment. It grew slowly, like a quiet courage awakening inside them. The AGT invitation felt impossible at first, too far, too expensive, too far from everything they knew. But their mother's tired smile and their father's trembling hand told them what they needed to understand. Sometimes life opens only one door, and all you can do is walk through it. The siblings gathered what little they had. Aiden packed his old guitar, the same one he had repaired with tape and hope more times than he could count. Mira folded her best dress, simple but clean, one she had saved for special nights that never came. Neighbors slipped coins into their hands. A tricycle driver they knew offered a small donation. Even strangers who often listened to them sing whispered blessings. Manila lifted them gently, as if the entire city wanted to see them fly. When they reached the airport, their hands trembled. They had never been inside a terminal before. The bright floors, the long hallways, the unfamiliar announcements, everything felt larger than life. As they stepped onto the plane, their hearts beat faster, caught between fear and a courage they did not know they possessed. High above the clouds, Aiden stared out the window. For the first time, the world seemed bigger than the struggles waiting at home. Mira looked ahead, eyes full of silent faith. She believed that even if they failed, they would return knowing they had tried. Los Angeles greeted them with bright billboards, tall buildings, and a sky that felt wider than anything they had ever seen. The air was different. The noise was unfamiliar. Yet they carried every scent and memory of Manila with them, its warmth, its chaos, its heart. Inside the AGT waiting area, dozens of performers practiced. Some with glittering outfits. Some with world-class confidence. Some with teams supporting them. The siblings had none of that. Only a guitar. Only their voices. Only each other. For a moment, doubt wrapped itself around Aiden's heartbeat. But Mira placed her hand gently over his. They didn't come to compete. They came to honor every sacrifice made behind them. And somewhere deep inside, they knew this journey had already changed them. The backstage area hummed with nervous energy. Performers tightened laces, adjusted costumes, whispered final thoughts to themselves. But Aiden and Mira stood quietly in a corner, holding their guitar between them like a lifeline. The stage felt impossibly close, just a curtain away, yet still far enough to make their hearts tremble. Aiden's hands felt cold, the kind of cold that came from years of self-doubt. Mira closed her eyes for a moment, letting the distant echo of the audience settle inside her chest. They could hear cheers, applause, the shifting waves of anticipation from thousands of strangers waiting on the other side. It was overwhelming, but also beautiful. When their names were called, they stepped forward with slow, steady breaths. The world felt brighter as the curtain parted, revealing a stage washed in golden light. Above them, massive screens, towering rigs, and cameras pointed directly at their faces. The judges watched with curious, unreadable expressions. The crowd murmured, waiting to be impressed, waiting to be moved, waiting to feel something. The siblings walked toward the center, small figures in a space designed for legends. For a brief second, Aiden's knees weakened. Mira instinctively shifted closer, grounding him with silent strength. Together, they stood beneath the spotlight, their first real spotlight, and the atmosphere shifted, delicate and electric at the same time. When the music began, the air seemed to still. Aiden closed his eyes, allowing the first gentle note to rise from his chest. It floated softly, fragile yet full of truth, like a story whispered on a rooftop. Mira followed, her voice weaving around his, bright and pure, lifting the melody higher with every breath. Their harmony grew, filling the theater with the soul of Manila itself, its resilience, its heartbreak, its hidden beauty. The audience leaned forward, captivated by something they didn't expect. This wasn't spectacle. This wasn't performance. This was two young souls pouring every hardship, every night of uncertainty, every small moment of hope into a single song. When the final note echoed through the silent hall, something extraordinary happened. A hush, deep and absolute, settled over the crowd. And then, as if moved by one heartbeat, the entire audience rose together. A standing ovation so powerful it felt like the world itself was applauding. And in that breathtaking moment, their lives changed forever. Backstage, time seemed to slow as the final echoes of applause faded behind the thick curtains. The siblings stepped off the stage with trembling legs, their breaths uneven, their hearts still racing from what had just unfolded. The world outside had erupted into something they had never imagined, thousands rising together, cheering not for a spectacle, but for their truth. For a moment, neither of them moved. The adrenaline held them still, as though the air itself was too heavy to breathe. Crew members paused in their routines, watching the siblings with a rare softness. Some leaned forward with wide eyes, others exchanged glances that silently acknowledged they had witnessed something unforgettable. It wasn't just a performance. It was a moment, raw, human, and deeply real. One producer pressed a hand against their mouth, visibly moved. A lighting technician wiped their eyes quickly, pretending it was dust. Even the stagehands, usually busy and unbothered, stood frozen, quietly absorbing what they had seen. It was as if the entire backstage area had been touched by a wave of emotion that refused to pass. The siblings walked slowly toward the hallway, still trying to process the magnitude of what had happened. Aiden's steps were uneven, the weight of all the years of doubt suddenly lifting from him. Mira steadied him with a gentle touch, though her own hands trembled with a mixture of relief, disbelief, and overwhelming gratitude. Inside, a shift had begun, something subtle yet powerful. For the first time, Aiden saw himself through the eyes of those who had just witnessed his voice. Not as the shy boy on the streets of Manila, but as someone capable of filling an entire theater with silence and awe. Mira, too, felt a change. Her courage, once carried quietly in her chest, now shone openly, reflected in the stunned faces around her. As the siblings sat in a small corner backstage, reality slowly settled in. They had come to America carrying only a guitar, a dream, and the weight of home. But now, something new rested on their shoulders: hope from strangers, belief from thousands, and a truth they could no longer deny. The world had seen them. And the world was not going to forget. When they finally returned to Manila, the sky looked different, brighter somehow, as if the city itself had been waiting for them. The warmth of home wrapped around them the moment they stepped out of the airport, greeting them with the familiar scent of street food, the distant calls of vendors, and the hum of jeepneys weaving through traffic. But something inside the siblings had changed. They walked the same streets, yet the world now felt wider, filled with possibilities they once believed were too distant to reach. Neighbors came out of their homes, faces glowing with pride. Some had watched the performance live, others had seen the clips spreading across social media like wildfire. In small shops and narrow alleyways, people whispered about the Filipino duo who made an entire crowd stand at once. Their voices, once carried only by the market wind, now traveled across oceans, touching hearts far beyond the city that raised them. At home, their father's eyes sparkled with a joy that illness had long stolen from him. Their mother held them close, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. The family had always shared burdens, now they shared something else: triumph, light, and a dream reborn. As days passed, the world's reaction grew louder. Messages poured in from strangers who felt healed by their music. People spoke about courage, resilience, and how two siblings from Manila reminded them that beauty can rise from the hardest places. Interviews, invitations, and opportunities followed, but the siblings remained grounded, returning often to the same corner where they once performed for coins. Not for money, but for gratitude. For the people who believed in them before anyone else knew their names. Their AGT performance became more than a viral moment. It became a symbol, proof that greatness is not reserved for the privileged. It can come from narrow streets, from small rooftops, from places where dreams are often overshadowed by survival. Aiden and Mira continued singing, but now with a purpose larger than themselves. They carried the voices of those who worked without rest, those who loved without condition, those who hoped quietly in the dark. And as they sang, the world listened. Their legacy was simple, yet profound. A reminder that when truth is sung with heart, it has the power to lift not just one crowd, but the entire world.